Mom, are we red or are we blue? I remember asking this when I was in elementary school during the 1980 Carter versus Reagan election. We were living in my grandparents' basement when my mother, having left my father the year before. We are red, Republican red, my grandfather said with a growl that was not unaffectionate. We're not raising any of those liberal-ass feminists in this house. I'd never heard the word feminists before, but I knew by the way his lips curled around the word and the spittle gathered that it must be powerful and frightening. We weren't feminists. We were red, Republican red. You're not mother material. Said to me often from an early age, my family's opinion wasn't intended to be cruel, but it was said often and stated as fact. You should probably go learn to type, they'd say, as if my only two options in life were a station wagon full of screaming children or an IBM Selectric typewriter. Why was I not mother material? Wasn't mother material simply someone who had a kid? What kind of person did it take to be a mother? Everyone had a mother. Not everyone had a father as far as I knew. I learned to type as instructed. Those are her ass-kicking boots. Being 17 and female and a military police officer was an interesting combination. The fact that I was female, not a woman or a girl, as defined by the military, was my first clue I wasn't in Kansas anymore. The guys didn't respect me in training. The Army didn't want to train me with a .45 caliber pistol because, I had a vagina. Too bad for them. My next unit didn't have any women, so I didn't have the Army's preferred .38s for me. They had to train me with the .45 caliber, and I outshot every one of them. When I enlisted, I asked to be sent as far away from Louisville, Kentucky as possible. I was promptly assigned to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. At first, I didn't get any respect there either, but eventually my hand-to-hand combat skills and a pair of boots, known as my ass-kicking boots, got their attention. You're going to grow up to hate me. That was my response when the nurse handed me my first child, a girl. During my pregnancy, people would ask, "Are you having a boy or a girl?" I would smile and say, "We don't know." Surely you'd have a clue, the stranger would persist, because didn't all mothers instinctively know? What I'd admit to few, but felt in my heart, was that I was carrying a baby girl, because I desperately wanted a boy, and I never got what I wanted. I was right. What's a political moderate doing married to the likes of me? With these snapshots of my life, you might wonder what my story is doing in a book of nasty women, liberals, and feminists. And the truth is that you had asked me this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have given you an answer. I wouldn't have known. The change happened slowly. The decision to have kids didn't come lightly. It was a mistake. A birth control failure, to be exact. My husband and I felt we were grown-ups, and an accidental pregnancy was the risk we took in being sexually active. We were young and didn't really know exactly how pregnancy worked, and a few weeks and many tears later, our pregnancy ended in miscarriage. We'd grown to like the idea of being parents, and now we'd lost our baby. This is the point where my earth shook. Immersing myself in pregnancy and birth was my defense. Even though I was an active-duty military police officer, I started offering help to other women as they give birth, and my career as a doula was born. It would be several years before I realized what I'd actually birthed, but in hindsight, it is so very clear. My husband was the first person I knew to say out loud that he was a feminist. I rolled my eyes. How stupid. Women were equal to men. Who needs feminism? Not me. We were the case of opposites attracting. He was blue to my red, the feminist to my ignorance. We tolerated each other politically. Raising a family, going to graduate school, and working all at the same time was the true test of the grit that made my life fulfilling. My votes became bluer. My words became more centered. Then one day, I heard myself explaining to my grandmother that while I would never have an abortion, I felt it wasn't my place to tell other people what to do with their bodies. I'm not sure when it happened, but I started claiming that I was a feminist too. In Kentucky, you'd get a better reception as a communist than a feminist. He's so ugh. Donald Trump came to town for a rally. On a whim, I decided to take my then almost 16-year-old daughter to see him, and at the last minute she begged to use the second ticket to invite a friend. The bubbly girls whom I dropped off were not the girls I picked up. They were angry and astounded. "Mom, he's so ugh," her friend added. "The people, ugh." This was the first rally where violence had broken out. That cat is better than half of the candidates. Many of my older kids are politically active. My son ran a cat for president as a way to get the Federal Election Commission to change the rules on how people register to run for office. It worked. He and his sister managed the cat's campaign, and they had more social media followers than Martin O'Malley. Their presidential pet debate wound up on the Today Show. "He's so mean," my 11-year-old said of Donald Trump. She didn't understand. My husband and I told her that mean kids don't win, that good triumphs over evil. "Why did the Republicans pick him to run against Hillary?" she asked. I tried to make excuses for my fellow humans, but I was baffled. I muttered some crazy ideas that I'd read on the internet as if they were the truth. Do people hate her just because she's a woman? My 8-year-old daughter cut right to the chase. She saw right through me as I tried to tell her that being a woman, that simply having a vagina was not a reason to be hated. That's not what they say at school. They say women can't be president. Oh yeah? We'd show them. Don't forget to get out and vote tomorrow. My oldest daughter was going through a rough time in her life, but at the campaign headquarters working on the Clinton campaign, she was bright and alert. The day before the election, with 6 girls in tow, we went to make calls for Hillary. The force in that room was palpable. It was so crowded that we had to work in a back stairwell. The older girls went to work right away, but I had to help my 8 and 11-year-olds as they started making calls from a script. I knew my son was making similar calls in a different red state while at college. I was so proud. We canvassed and left get out the vote materials. The kids met some really neat characters that day. Some positive and some not so positive. It began to get cold and the rain started to fall. The little ones were the first ones to complete their tasks. Soon only my 25-year-old daughter and I were finishing the job. The campaign had said we could skip it, but she felt it was important. Having watched her battle depression, I loved seeing the life back in her body, the spirit in her eyes. She was on a mission to elect the first woman president. Hillary's wall in Florida isn't holding. On election night, we turned to the televisions and waited for the returns at headquarters. In a matter of minutes, I felt panic. Florida was not the anticipated wall of protection. I started looking around and no one was jovial. Everybody was staring intently at a screen. A tiny seed of panic was quickly growing, and I knew that I had to get my girls out of there to shield them from the horror to come. Home and to bed. That only worked for the younger ones. My oldest stayed up, watching and asking questions. I tried to hide. "I'll take a bath and we'll be all right. Wisconsin will save us." Nope. In the wee hours of the morning, I was left holding a puddle of tears that was my eldest. She was shattered. She felt as though she somehow personally failed the campaign, that Hillary's loss was a reflection of her worth. The despair in her reflected my own feelings. What is a feminist mother? To me, being a feminist mother means to allow my kids the options and space to be who they are, to be the best of my abilities, to acknowledge that I am flawed. As a mother, as a person, as a woman, and as a human being, and they are too. I reflect back on the oft-told advice that I should avoid motherhood, that I was not mother material. I don't know what that means now, even though I knew exactly what it meant when I was growing up. Was the matriarchy holding me back or propelling me forward? My belief depends on which day you ask me. I like to believe that they saw something in me that said I would do great things. Though if I believe that, then I have to believe that they thought motherhood would bring me down. But I say that motherhood made me the strong feminist that I am today. So I will end with the question that I was asked when I first sat down to write these thoughts. What would you tell your 16-year-old daughter? I bought us bus tickets to go to the walk on the Women's March in Washington together. Her eyes sparkled and she ran off to tell her friend, the one who had also gone to that Trump rally, that she gets to go to the real march. Turns out I am mother material after all.